wanted to ask a question around a phenomenon that comes into my coaching quite reasonably frequently, which is a couple being in a kind of monogamous relationship, and then there's a desire to move into a polyamorous relationship. And I guess a question I have to start with is like, what does that couple need to not just do, but kind of embody to make that transition a successful one?
It's a good question. It comes up a lot because, again, I don't know if most people come into non-monogamy, or what I like to call multigamy instead of non-monogamy. It's something I use often, but because multigamy can include open relationships, swinging, a monogamish kind of relationships, as well as polyamory. So first off, I think, is examining your relationship. So doing a full relationship audit to see where are the struggle points, what's still a challenge, how are you communicating, can you bring difficult topics with each other, can you come and talk about the difficult things, can you talk to your partner about something that's true for you that they may find difficult to sit with, and can they hear you out without immediately personalizing it, getting defensive. It's like checking the dynamic that when you come out with something, is your partner immediately defensive, or are you getting defensive? Or can you just sit and give them space to speak and recognize that that's their truth? It doesn't mean they're criticizing you. Even if it's something that they don't like about you, it's their truth, right? So like, can we have this honest and compassionate conversations? And if we can't, do we need to learn some tools like honesty, nonviolent communication? So skill up your kind of communication game as a starting point. And think about what you personally stand to gain or explore in this dynamic that you want to explore. What is it for you? It's not a good answer is not, I'm doing this because my wife wants to, so I'm just to keep her so she won't leave me, I'm agreeing to it. That's not a good reason. But often that's what happens. One side wants to open and the other side is like, I don't want to leave my partner, so I'll just go along with it. And often that's when they come to see me, right? So now, if you can wait until you figure this out, great. Sometimes people can't wait. If somebody felt all their life that they're missing something and all of a sudden they have a chance to explore it, I can see why they may not want to wait until their partner catches up emotionally with it, right? And is fully in acceptance. But there's going to be pain if it's done really quickly and without waiting for that. Now, there are relationships where it's one-sided. One side sees other people, the other does not. It's called monopoly relationships. And that can work because the monogamous partner in there can still see benefits to the dynamic. And that might be just that their partner is a lot happier, a lot more fulfilled, and that energy and the positive energy is coming back to also benefit the relationship. It can be that they get extra days a week where they're free and they can do their hobbies that their partner really doesn't like, right? Or they can see their friends, or just spend time alone and read books, whatever that they like, that they basically before didn't have time for. So finding what it means for them and how they can benefit from it is an important part of it. One more thing, let's see, for people opening up is to also look at the codependency issues. So really examine where codependency comes up. What are they really relying on that only the partner has provided them? And can they either make sure that they can provide it for themselves, or that they have a network, an emotional support network, a friendship network that they can go to if their partner is unavailable? So stop relying on your partner for everything and recognize where that's happening, that you can do something about it. All right, that's really important to avoid the feeling of kind of loss of control, or kind of feeling like the ground has kind of dropped beneath your feet when your partner is out on a date. So you need to kind of go and find more security elsewhere as well. And when you decide on how to do it, you mentioned earlier, like agreements, right? Making agreements is a place where a lot of couples do stumble, because they want to put some rigid rules in place to protect what they had. So let's say they started monogamy, they're opening up, but they still want to protect elements of the monogamy that gives them security, right? So for example, yes, we can go and have sex with other people, but we're not allowed to fall in love with anybody else. That's a rule, but it's also an unrealistic rule, because you have no control of it. unless you are denying yourself. So people can fall in love after meeting somebody for 3 times and having sex with them. It happens, right? So you can't control feelings. Some people try to put on additional rules, like you can only see a person for maximum 3 times, or only 1 time, or you can't have any overnight, you can't sleep over, so you don't build any intimacy. Okay, at some point that's not going to work for one of you or both of you, and it's good to be realistic about it from the beginning. So rather than making these rigid rules that usually are only there to protect the sense of security of one partner over the other, we want to consider making agreements that can be changeable, and that we keep checking in with each other if they're still fit for purpose. So the agreement may be, okay, initially we'd want to have overnights, and that's in both directions. And then if one of us wants to, we talk about it and see, okay, well, let's introduce it, let's see what happens, right? And maybe at some point I'm seeing somebody enough and they want to go on holiday with me, and it's like something we've never discussed before, and we had an agreement about it, but you know what? Can we talk about it? Can we have a conversation about changing and adapting the agreement, so we both feel that our needs are met and that also our wants and our desires are seen, so I would say, yeah, don't use the language of rules. Consider agreements are only valid as long as both people really want that. And if it's not the case anymore, be willing to check in with each other and discuss changing it.
Powerful. Yeah. It's like, as you describe it, and maybe it's just the way you've described it, it's not how you kind of frame it, is the kind of like slow opening almost is how I heard it sound. I'm not sure if that's just the as you just where you were describing the agreements and those shifting and changes, that's what that was. But is that something that, because what I often come across is, I work with men, and there's a man and he wants the relationship to open, and his partner is like, they don't really want it. But he's like, well, if you don't want it, then I'm actually going to go and find a new relationship. She's like, okay, then we can do this. And then enforces a load of rules, right? It could be anything from like you said, I don't want any overnights. I don't want you sleeping with any sex workers, things like this. And then it creates a dynamic that I've seen a few times where the man kind of makes an agreement, but is actually then starts to be not truthful to avoid hurting and upsetting the other person.
Yeah, that's common. And people often would rationalize things for themselves. It's very like, well, I made this agreement, but my heart isn't really in it. So I will basically try to skirt the line, go in the blurred edges, and I can always have some plausible deniability or whatever. Or if she doesn't know, then I can get away with it, etc. Ultimately, yeah, long term, it's not a strategy. By the way, it's probably safer to say go only with sex workers because they're not going to get attached. But just, but I think in all of these cases, what happens is, yeah, the man maybe is pushing for something, but they're not going to get what they really want because there's going to be all these conditions attached. And what in this particular example is probably better is that you find a way to help your partner feel more secure, more relaxed, by going at their pace, right? By the way, it's statistically true that most of the time it is the man that wants to open a relationship, and also most of the time it is ultimately the woman who is a lot more happy in being open. And usually it's like, it starts like that. The woman then reluctantly goes, she starts doing it herself. She's a lot more successful in that, and ultimately gets a lot more dates, and the man gets upset and wants to close it back down. I see that often happening. So it's okay if you're not at the same pace exactly. It's okay if you want different things. Sometimes one person is going to want to just have hookups or sex parties, or go to kind of dungeon parties and BDSM clubs or orgies or whatever, and then the other person might just want slow burn dates where little happen, or either demisexual and they just want to slowly build up a connection, intimate connection with somebody, and that's fine. You don't want to look for total equality. It's not a reciprocal thing where you have to do the same thing. Oftentimes people think that that's what's going to keep them safe. It's not, because both of them are going to be unhappy. So it's more about kind of finding equity, and means that for each person, it's what's right for them. And I think the question that I always ask myself when I'm with a partner I love is, okay, what do I love about them? If it's how they make me feel, then that's not love. That's like That's narcissism. That's self-validation, the kind of validation. That's needing the validation of others for me to feel good. That's not about love. It can be attachment, but it's not love. Love is, I love them for who they are. I see them as a person. I'm like, wow, this is an amazing person. And I want them to be more of who they are. I want them to find their authentic voice. I want them to grow spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and always feel like they are their true selves, right? I don't have control over it. It's their journey. I'm there for the journey. I'm happy to be part of it. And if they want to share that with me, if they want to ask me something about it, that's great, but it's their journey. So if their journey leads them to meet somebody else and leave me, for example, maybe in monogamy or also polyamory sometimes, okay, it's hard, it pains me, it hurts, but it's still their journey and it's their choice. It's their, I don't get to say what they do with their body, with their soul, with their heart. I'm just like happy that they choose to share that with me sometimes. And if they meet somebody else and still want to be with me, great. So I know that even though they are caring and developing feelings for someone else, that hasn't diminished how they feel about me. And that's actually, I feel, a really good place to be. So I need to, as much freedom as I want for myself, I want that for my partners, right? It's the same. But that means that it's freedom for them to be who they are. And if they don't want to see anybody except for me, that's their choice, right? I can't force them to go see people just because I'm seeing people, even though it might make my life easier to know that they're also having other partners. But again, anything more than that is coercion and manipulation if I try to like dictate that for them.